Geoff is someone I have known from the internet, where I have met many of you. I have these moments all the time where I meet someone and then don't know if I've met them in real life or just online. Those connections are that meaningful to me, and that extends to Geoff also. Geoff is a math coach in the New Tech network of schools, and he is passionate about project-based learning. As with a lot of passions, that's good and bad. Like, passion sustains you, drives the work, but passion can sometimes make you a little bit like moony-eyed and kind of weird to folks you talk to. Not so with Geoff, who keeps his feet on the ground and knows, he understands the rationale for why he does what he does, and especially knows why students respond so well to his model of project-based learning. I'm so excited to introduce to you all Geoff Krall. Come on, Geoff.
So I'm visiting a school in Santa Ana, California. It's actually on the border of Santa Ana and Orange County, or the OC, as they prefer it to be called. Just a little travel tip there for you. They love it when you call it the OC. Anyway, I'm just sort of milling around. It's lunchtime, and I'm looking at the walls, and I come across this wall. And it's filled with just beautiful, earnest student reflections. And I'm sort of curious about where this came from. So I asked the teacher, Kayla, that's the name of the teacher, what's up with these reflections? Where'd you get these? How'd you get them? And Kayla actually had to run and make some copies. So she asked her student, Cassandra, if she could explain it to me while she stepped out of the room. So Kayla steps out to make some copies, and Cassandra walks me through their process. Apparently at the end of every unit, or sometimes just at the end of a complex, challenging problem, they write a written reflection. Where was this difficult? Where did they struggle? How did they get better at it? I thought this was pretty cool. But we were just getting started. You see, then Cassandra goes behind Kayla's desk, and Kayla has one of those file cabinets from like World War II surplus stores, where somehow like the drawer is like longer than the file cabinet is deep. She's just pulling, and it just keeps extending. And inside, there's just folders and folders and folders of students' work with their names on them. Each folder has a different student name with their respective work in it. And Cassandra finds her folder. And she pulls it out, and she just puts it on the desk, and we start taking a look at it, and we just have a conversation. And in there's the work that she's produced starting from when she was a freshman. She's now about halfway through her sophomore year. And we're just kind of looking through it. And she's looking at her work from freshman year and looking at her work from sophomore year, back to freshman year. She squints at the work from her sophomore year, and she says, "Damn, I have grown." And that was one of my favorite experiences or singular moments in a math classroom. Except for maybe in 4th grade when Miss Lauderdale assigned me with Karen Pendleton for our bug project. That was anyway. I cherished that moment, and that moment of Cassandra's realization that she had grown as a mathematician would not have happened had we not had mathematical anthropology. Anthropology is the study of what makes us human. What I implore you to do is explore what makes your students mathematicians. So, in order to do that, I'm going to lead you through my call to action. But before we get to that, I'd like to engage in a little bit of art criticism. I guess art criticism is kind of a subset of anthropology. So what I'd like you to do, I'm going to put a painting up on the screen. And what I want you to think about is, what is this painter trying to convey through this artifact? You ready? Okay. What is this painter saying? Would it help if we maybe looked at a different part of the painting? Okay, fair enough. We'll go ahead and, okay, so what is this artist trying to say through this painting? No, I see. I should probably move it one more time. So again, last time, what is this painter trying to say through this painting that we're examining right here? Well, so this painting is actually The Persistence of Memory by Salvador Dali. Some say it's a pretty good painting. Some say that it's about Einstein's theory of relativity. Others say it's about the impermanence of humanity. Either way, we can have a rich conversation about this artifact once we've zoomed out and taken a big picture look at it. It was probably kind of difficult to really assess the painting or get a sense of its meaning when we were just focused in on one narrow aspect of it. Yet this is exactly how we assess students. Let me put it a different way. This is a graph. I needed to tell you that this was a graph. Forget my audience sometime. So the x-axis is time, because it's always time if it's the x-axis. And we'll say that the y-axis is kind of a rough estimate of how much stuff does a student know about math. We'll say that's the y-axis, being very precise here. And the orange line represents how much stuff or how much math that a kid is supposed to know vis-a-vis assessments and quizzes and state assessments. And a kid might, do this on their assessments. I don't know, maybe the first one's a 74, maybe then they get a 95. After all these years of being in school, maybe they end up at around a 70, I don't know. Oh, and they've failed 3 times out of our, 7 assessments here. And we tell these kids to have a growth mindset. We say, have a growth mindset. Effort creates ability. Yet this student will have failed 3 times out of 7. They'll have a 70 at the end of it. Maybe they had a 74 at the beginning. And we say, have a growth mindset. This student has learned a lot of stuff, according to my really scientific graph here. Yet their grades don't reflect that. A student will look at this and say, well, I started with a 74, now I have a 70. I guess I haven't grown. I guess I haven't learned anything. Have a growth mindset. What this articulates to students is not that they've grown in math. What this communicates to students is how much they've learned against an external set of standards which is always growing itself. Do you see the difference? So how do we communicate an authentic growth mindset to students when this is what they're given? Well, I'd like to propose mathematical anthropology as a first step towards that. So there's 3 elements of mathematical anthropology. And the first is to assign complex tasks that produce complex work. You see, you can't really have a robust conversation about a rote worksheet. You can't really have a conversation 6 months, 8 months, a year from now about a numerical score. It reminds me of in Arrested Development, when Maybe goes to the progressive school openings, where they don't give grades, they give feelings. And yet still on her report card, the math teacher says, math makes Maybe feel C-. That's kind of what I think about when I hear, have a growth mindset, or I see a cat poster on the wall that says, hang in there, here's your C-. You can't really have a discussion about C-. Maybe you can about crocodile and the sunshine, but you can have a robust conversation about this artifact. If you give complex tasks, you'll get complex work, and you can have a conversation about it. And the good news is that within this room, there are dozens and dozens of like-minded educators that have produced, uploaded, and shared complex, rich tasks that will produce this work. The next thing I'd like you to do as you explore mathematical anthropology is to give your students an opportunity for written reflection. I'm reminded of one of my favorite TV shows of all time, Scrubs, which is a medical sitcom. By the way, I had my first child in 2005, so if you're wondering why all my pop culture references stop then, that sort of explains it. So, anyway, so JD here is the pupil of the head doctor, Dr. Cox. And in this scene, Dr. Cox is explaining to JD why he had him do his own evaluation, why he had him self-evaluate. Okay, I'll let Dr. Cox explain why he had him do that.
I mean, did you even wonder why I told you to do your own evaluation?
I can't think of a safe answer. I just figured...
Clam up! I wanted you to think about yourself. And I mean really think. What are you good at? What do you suck at? And then I wanted you to put it down on paper. And not so I could see it, and not so anybody else could see it, but so that you could see it. Because ultimately, you don't have to answer to me, and you don't have to answer to Kelso. You don't even have to answer to your patients, for God's sake. You only have to answer to one guy, newbie, and that's you.
Now, I don't recommend yelling at your students. I don't recommend telling them to clam up, and I don't recommend to put down what they, quote-unquote, suck at. But I actually really appreciate Dr. Cox's reasoning here. He wants JD to put his own written evaluation on paper so that he can see it himself. So going back to the wall that got me interested in mathematical anthropology to begin with, Cassandra is the one who was explaining it to me. And I'd like to go ahead and share a little bit of her reflection. This is her reflection after one of her complex problems. And I don't want to go through the whole thing, but I would like to zoom in on the last bit. Cassandra writes, "The way I grew was I learned not to be afraid to communicate to my group if there was a problem, if I didn't understand something. I learned that there is nothing to be afraid of. My group wouldn't give up on me." You can't get these kind of earnest written reflections unless you ask for them. Thankfully, Cassandra's teachers did. The last part of becoming a mathematical anthropologist. You're going to take this work. You're going to take the work that you collected from these complex tasks. You're going to collect these written reflections, and you're going to put them in a safe space. If, like Kayla, you have a file cabinet from World War II that is probably covered in lead paint and asbestos like the rest of your school, you can use that. You can save it in there. It's probably flame retardant. Or you can use Google Docs and just upload it there. Either way, I want you to use this work and have a conversation with the student 6, 8 months from now. Maybe a year from now, if you have that opportunity and you have that relationship with the student, even after they've potentially departed your class. It didn't take much. All I had to do was open up Cassandra's folder of all of her work, and she was able to see her growth as a mathematician. That's all we had to do. We didn't have a protocol. We just looked at it and started talking, and she came to the realization that she had grown as a math student and as a young mathematician. So this is my call to action. I'd like you to do these 3 things in your journey towards mathematical anthropology. First, assign complex tasks to obtain complex work. Second, invite written reflection. And third, 4 months, 6 months, or a year from now, pull that work out and have a conversation with your students. That way, they can actually see authentically to have a growth mindset, rather than just in words. So let's give your students their own "damn, I've grown" moment by using mathematical anthropology. Because it starts with anthropologizing their work, with all of its faults, with all of its honesty, and with all of their brilliance. Thank you.